Thinking back, not just over the past year, but over the past 5 years, we've had the chance to learn some unique life lessons about the power of showing up, the power of being present with our community and with our loved ones. Think back to Rosh Hashanah 5 years ago. It was the year 5780 on the Jewish calendar. Some of my colleagues were making jokes about how the 80s were back, making playlists of 1980s music and planning Rosh Hashanah parties themed with 1980s fashion. Now, of course, just a few months after that, we were in the midst of a global pandemic. Not only were we unable to gather with our community, many of us were unable to gather with our families and our closest friends. To try to bring ourselves consolation, we dove into our electronic devices, our screens. We had Zoom family hangout services and holiday gatherings. And we found new hobbies, new interests that would have never appealed to us before, but that allowed us to find fun and enjoyment even when we were alone, even when we were apart. 5 years later, we have learned through our life experiences the power of in-person connection, of being with others in the same physical space in the same moment. We continue to reap the benefits of video conferencing technology and live-streamed events and virtual services, which are great blessings. And still, we know so deeply, we feel so powerfully what it means to show up face to face, to be physically together in real time. Thinking back over the past year, we have had the challenge, as we know, of living together through a terrible and tragic time for the Jewish people. Globally, we have felt the pain of an unspeakable terrorist attack and the unrelenting waves of anti-Semitism that followed and that are still following. To ease our pain and to cope with our reality, we gathered. We gathered in solidarity last October. We gathered last month for a Shiva Minyan for the 6 hostages found brutally murdered. And we gathered day after day, week after week, for morning minyan, for Shabbat services, and for holidays. Each time we gather, we pray for Israel, we pray for the IDF, and we pray for our hostages. In the coming year 5785, we at Adat Shalom will have a unique opportunity to show up for one another, for the Jewish people, and also for ourselves. This spring, as an Adat Shalom community, we will be traveling together on a trip to Israel. This trip, this mission, is months and years in the making. I know that the Adat Shalom community, our community, had been planning an Israel trip 5 years ago, and sadly it was not able to happen because of the pandemic. Then, last December, in the wake of the October 7th terrorist attacks, I traveled to Israel with the Rabbinical Assembly, and last February, our executive director, Rina Lee Flug, traveled to Israel with the North American Association of Synagogue Executives. Both of us had such powerful experiences. And even though our trips were only 2 months apart, both of us had such different experiences. In December, things were still so raw. There were places we could not yet go and things we could not yet see. Already in February, more had opened up. But one thing was the same. Our presence, our physically being in Israel, face to face with our Israeli brothers and sisters, was so deeply appreciated by everyone we met. And it powerfully impacted each of us. We both knew that we wanted and that we needed to extend this opportunity, to extend this face-to-face connection with Israel to our Adat Shalom community at this powerful moment in time. Of course, as we make our plans, safety and security are of paramount importance. Over the past year, out of necessity, we have all learned so much about what it means, what it takes to be safe and secure. We have learned and we have practiced our new protocols here on our campus so that we can continue to operate, we can continue to provide our resources to our community. Similarly, when it comes to safety and security in Israel, there are new practices and protocols to keep Israelis and visitors safe and secure. We will follow all protocols on our trip diligently, just as we follow all protocols here on our campus diligently. We can continue to be safe, and we can continue to operate. It has taken time. We certainly weren't ready for this type of trip last winter, yet now it is possible. And we will follow every development to make sure we stay safe throughout our trip. For those of us who have been on group Israel tours before, let's be clear, this is different from any Israel trip that you might have been on in the past. The tourist activities of years past will not be our focus and cannot be our focus in a time like this. We will be engaged in learning, in volunteering, in bearing witness, in being present for our Israeli brothers and sisters. And we will be together, we will support one another throughout every moment of our journey. Now, some of us might have heard of the term disaster tourism. This term refers to the practice in a very general sense of traveling to a place where something bad has happened and to taking it in as a spectacle. Travel guide Camille Munford comments on this practice saying, "In the end, it all comes down to your own motivations. Are you willing to engage and learn?" When I visited Kfar Aza, one of the kibbutzim hit hardest in the attack, I of course was with a group on a bus. And throughout the day, bus after bus, group after group continued to arrive and depart, coordinated and well-timed to be sure we were all safe. And none of us were there to passively take in a spectacle. All of us were there to engage because we, the Jewish people, are one people with one heart. What happened in Kfar Aza happened to a part of us. And all of us were there to learn because we, the Jewish people, are all responsible for one another. We needed to learn the stories of what happened to our brothers and sisters so we could take responsibility for knowing the reality of what is going on in our Jewish nation. This was not disaster tourism. This was visiting our grieving family in a time of great sorrow, in a time of need for our comfort. Now let me share with you some of what we have planned for our Dat Shalom trip to Israel. We'll depart Los Angeles right after Pesach next spring. We'll arrive in Israel just before Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, and we will observe this day as is customary in Israel, when the whole country takes 2 minutes of silence and stillness. We will do the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, visiting soldiers who are recovering and lifting their spirits. These visits to soldiers are truly meaningful. Our visit will truly make a tangible impact. We will go to Tel Aviv and visit Hostages Square, Kikar HaChatufim, in the plaza in front of the Tel Aviv Museum of Art. Families of hostages have been there since the beginning of the war and has become a place of prayer, song, and solidarity. The Masorti movement, the conservative movement in Israel, has held religious services that have drawn in there Israelis who previously had no interest in and no experience with the prayers of our tradition. We will go to Kfar Aza. We will go to the site of the Nova Festival. We will go to the very places where our fellow Jews were attacked and killed in their homes, not to take in a spectacle, instead to take responsibility, to engage, and to learn the reality of what has happened to our people, what has happened to us. And on Shabbat, we will rest. We will pray. We will delight in the study of Torah. We will walk around Jerusalem and visit the Old City, and we will reflect. We will hold each other in community as we process what we have done and what we have seen, and we will draw closer to one another. We will go to farms and pick vegetables. We will volunteer. We will contribute. We will not only be contributing our physical efforts, we will be contributing our goodwill. We will be showing Israeli farmers that in their time of struggle, they are not forgotten, that they have Jewish brothers and sisters throughout the world who will come to their aid, who will show up and do everything we can. We will visit soldiers, sharing meals with them, showing our appreciation and love, nourishing them physically and emotionally, bringing them strength. And we will pack food for the needy, answering the call in this morning's Haftarah, spoken by our prophet Isaiah, to show our goodness through acts of justice. We will hear testimony from survivors and bereaved families, giving them a space to process and heal and find consolation as they pour out their hearts, as we hold them and their stories. We will give them love and care as we hear the experiences of our people. And we will visit the graves of our fallen soldiers, paying our respects to the young men and women who gave their lives to defend our nation, to defend our homeland. And of course, before we leave, we will learn what we can do, what we must do as individuals and as a community, now that we have seen what we have seen, now that we have learned what we have learned. Again, we will reflect. Again, we will hold each other in community. Again, we will draw closer. We will begin to transform our engagement, our learning, into action. And we will come home spiritually fortified. We will come home forever strengthened. We will have showed up face to face for Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, Medinat Yisrael. We will have showed up for each other, for our Adat Shalom community, and we will arrive home transformed, connected to one another in a way that is unique and irreplaceable. We will have nurtured our own individual connection to the land of Israel, our holy land, in the most tangible of ways, showing up for ourselves. Now, I'm sure in the coming days and weeks, perhaps even in the coming minutes and hours, many of us will have questions about this trip. Many of us will need and want to talk more. Please know that Rena Lee and I welcome these questions, these conversations, as we take the next steps to bring these plans to fruition, to move through the last stages of making this dream a reality. May we, as our Adat Shalom community, travel to our Holy Land in safety. May we return in safety. May we be led on our journey in joy and peace and wholeness, in celebration of being alive, and in gratitude for all that it means to be Jewish. May the work of our hands, the learning of our minds and souls, and the love of our hearts bring blessing to us and to all Israel. Gemar Chatima Tova, Am Yisrael Chai.